You hear a sound behind you, a small one, a creak, a rustle, something that probably means nothing. But before your mind even has a chance to process it, your body has already moved. Your shoulders tighten, your breath catches, your eyes go wide, and for a fraction of a second, you are not a person sitting in a room. You are prey. That reaction is not anxiety. It is not weakness. It is 200 million years of survival code running in your nervous system, unasked, uninvited, and completely beyond your control. The real answer to why you feel fear is far stranger than you think. Your brain is not the rational engine you believe it to be. Beneath the layer of language and logic and self-awareness sits something older. Something that does not know what year it is. Something that does not know that the predators are gone. It only knows one thing with absolute certainty: that you might be eaten. And it will spend every resource it has to make sure that does not happen. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent decades mapping the brain's fear circuitry and found something that should change the way you think about yourself. The amygdala, a small almond-shaped cluster of neurons deep in your brain, processes threat signals before your conscious mind is even aware they exist. You do not decide to be afraid. Fear decides for you, and it decides in milliseconds. Think about what that means. Every time you jump at a shadow, every time your stomach drops when a car horn blares, every time you wake at 3 a.m. certain something is wrong, that is not you being irrational. That is an ancient system doing exactly what it was built to do, keeping you alive. But here is the part that nobody tells you. That system was calibrated for a world that no longer exists. Imagine the environment your ancestors lived in 200,000 years ago. Not cities, not streets, not the inside of a house with locked doors. Open savanna, dense forest, riverbanks at dusk. They lived in places where something could emerge from the tall grass at any moment and end them, where a moment of inattention was not a missed notification. It was death. Anthropologist Daniel Lieberman at Harvard describes the human body as a time machine. You are not a modern creature. You are an ancient creature living in a modern world. Your brain, your stress response, your fear circuits, they were all built and finalized long before the world became what it is today. And evolution does not update on demand. There is no patch. There is no upgrade. So the same system that kept your ancestors alive on the savannah now fires when your boss sends a terse email. The same adrenaline that prepared your great-great-grandmother to run from a predator now floods your body when you get a rejection letter. The same hypervigilance that once meant the difference between life and death now keeps you scanning your social feed at midnight, looking for threats that feel real but have no claws. What was your body scanning for back then? Everything. Sound, movement, shadow, smell. Researcher Arne Oman at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm ran a series of striking experiments in the 1990s. He showed people rapid sequences of images and found that humans detect snakes and spiders faster than they detect flowers or mushrooms, even when the images are masked so briefly that the conscious mind cannot perceive them. Your visual system is running a background program, always. A checklist. Does this match a predator? Does this match something that can harm me? And it runs that checklist before you are even aware you are looking. That is not paranoia. That is evolution. You are walking through a park and you see a coiled shape in the grass. Your body reacts before your brain has identified it as a garden hose. Because waiting to identify it correctly was the strategy that got your ancestors killed. The ones who reacted first survived. The ones who waited to be sure did not. You are descended from the reactors. Every single one of your ancestors, without exception, was fast enough and scared enough to survive long enough to have children. You carry their fear in your body as a kind of inheritance. But now consider what that inheritance costs you. Biologist Robert Sapolsky at Stanford has studied stress across species for over 40 years. He points out that a zebra on the savannah experiences stress in a very specific way. A lion appears. The zebra runs. The stress response fires at maximum intensity. And then, if the zebra survives, it grazes again within minutes. The stress response turns off as completely as it turned on. You do not work that way. You can activate the same biological stress response by thinking, by imagining, by worrying about something that has not happened and may never happen. And because your threat is not a lion that either eats you or does not, but a meeting tomorrow or a conversation that went wrong, or a fear about the future, you never reach the moment where the threat resolves and the system can switch off. Your body runs on a stress response that was designed to be brief and total. A sprint, not a marathon. But your mind has found ways to keep it running continuously. And that is why chronic stress exists. That is why anxiety disorders are the most common mental health condition in the modern world. Not because something is broken in you, because something ancient is running in a world it was not designed for. Psychologist Paul Gilbert developed what he calls the threat system, a framework for understanding why the human mind defaults to negativity. He describes it as one of 3 core emotional regulation systems in the brain: the threat system, the drive system, and the soothing system. And in modern life, the threat system is almost always the loudest voice in the room. It is the voice that notices the one critical comment among 50 positive ones. The voice that replays an embarrassing moment from 3 years ago at 2 a.m. The voice that says something is wrong even when everything is fine. That voice is not your inner critic. It is your survival system, searching for danger in a world where danger has become invisible. The lion is gone, but your brain never got the message. And here is the counterintuitive part. That system is also the reason you made it here. Every nightmare that woke you in a cold sweat, every moment of dread before something uncertain, every instinct that made you hesitate before doing something risky, that was the same system, protecting you, getting it wrong sometimes, maybe most of the time in modern life, but never failing to try. There is something almost tender about that if you sit with it. Your brain does not know that the office is not the savannah. It does not know that the person who ignored your message is not a threat to your survival. It does not know that you are safe. All it knows is what it has always known, that the world is dangerous, that attention is survival, that fear is the price of staying alive. Researchers who study something called the negativity bias, first systematically described by psychologists Roy Baumeister and Paul Rozin, found that negative events register with roughly 3 times the psychological weight of equivalent positive ones. A single criticism lands harder than 3 compliments. A bad day feels more defining than a good week. This is not a flaw in your character. It is a feature of a system that learned to weight threats more heavily than opportunities, because missing a threat was far more costly than missing a meal. You live in that system now, reading this wherever you are. When you scroll past someone's highlight reel online and feel a hollow pang of inadequacy, that is your threat system registering social danger. In a world where belonging to the group was survival, being left behind, being outranked, being excluded was a slow death sentence. Your brain never stopped treating status and belonging the way it once had to. When you lie awake running scenarios, imagining everything that could go wrong, that is your brain doing its oldest job. Rehearsing threats, planning escapes, keeping watch so you do not have to consciously choose to. And when you finally exhaust yourself and fall asleep, your brain continues. Dreaming, researchers now believe, is partly threat simulation. A way for the mind to practice responding to danger in a safe environment. Even in sleep, the system does not fully stand down. You cannot turn this off. You were not built with an off switch for fear, but you can learn to recognize it for what it is. Not the voice of truth, not a reliable signal about the present moment, but an ancient voice, still doing its ancient job, in a world that has changed far faster than the system wired to protect you. The sound behind you, the creak in the night, the tight feeling in your chest before something uncertain. That is 200 million years of evolution, pressing its hand against your back, whispering the same thing it has always whispered. Pay attention. Stay ready. You might still be hunted. And for almost every moment of your life on this earth, it was right.